feeling like you just don't care anymore? Well, then it's time to tune in to the Into Greatness podcast with Jason and Jolene. I am Jason.
And I'm Jolene.
And we do care here on this podcast, which is why we're here to talk to you about something
that you might not give a shit about. You sounded so calm and peaceful and
right?
serene there.
I'm not feeling that, but whatever. It's like, you know when they have those like commercials?
Yeah.
Feel like you just don't care anymore. Like, you know what I mean? I was channeling that
totally.
inner ad
That's
guy.
that medication. What is it? Fuck it all?
Fuck it all. Or your favorite soup, don't give a fuck.
Yeah, right? It's funny. We are here to talk about...
Apathy.
Apathy, a lack of feeling or emotion, impassiveness, lack of interest or concern, indifference, which is funny because Honey Badger don't give a fuck.
He's like the biggest
comes to
apathy.
mind, but I actually don't see him as neutral and passive. I see him as like aggressive apathy.
Yeah, well, totally
right?
aggressive apathy.
Yeah.
Same with Rick and Rick and Morty.
Okay,
I don't know if you've ever watched it. No, yeah, it's your kids are too young, but it's Rick who just doesn't give a fuck because his whole thing is he's realized he travels the multiverse, so there's a bazillion different versions of you in life. Mm-hmm. So what you do doesn't really matter because there's a bazillion different versions of you doing things in other universes. So your actions are really inconsequential, which means life is inconsequential. So he just doesn't give a fuck.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which we don't need to go down that road.
Well, and it's funny. It's like when I'm looking on the Google here, it says apathy described as an absence of feeling or emotion. This indifference can affect your motivation, leave you feeling detached from the world, go back to our belonging episode, stop you from caring about things. I actually think when we have a fear of failure, we become apathetic about things and lack motivation and drive for them. And apathy can actually serve as like one of our biggest crutches to prevent us from moving forward in some of those areas.
Big time.
So it's interesting. Is this a learned apathy? Is this an intentional apathy? Is it a symptom of something like depression or, schizophrenia comes to mind because that's actually that like amotivation is actually one of the negative symptoms of schizophrenia. Negative meaning something that's not there that should be. Negative not meaning positive or negative. It's an absence of something. So it's really interesting when we start to look at that because you can also think of, sociopaths. They may look apathetic, but there is a very different origin of what that lack of conscious awareness is,
and there's
feeling and social regard and all of those things.
Oh yeah, serial killers.
Yeah,
right. They may seem apathetic, but there's a method to that madness going on, and there's a reason why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, and I would imagine that apathy that we might perceive in somebody and have this comes up in couples work a lot, right? Like, oh, he just doesn't seem to care, and it's like, okay, wait a sec, is this from an avoidant attachment style and you're seeing it as him not caring, but it's actually him detaching from a highly emotive kind of state.
Yeah.
Right? So if you were to look at apathy, I think it impacts our lives in so many areas. I think it's probably misunderstood more than anything. And I think it's used as one of our primary coping or protection tools. What do you think?
I agree completely. Across the board. Like, I know there's been times, and I still am, like, apathetic to certain things. For me, it started more from just burning out from years of covering crime and news and politics. And actually, it's funny because I showed you that clip from Seven.
Yeah.
And it's the bar scene where Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman are talking. And I sort of said to you, like, Brad Pitt's character in this scene and movie is like Jay from 25 years ago. And Jay today is the Morgan Freeman character. And they're two. He's the guy just starting out in his police career. Mm-hmm. And Morgan Freeman's the guy that's done and he's packing it in. And I think years of wallowing in shit and seeing the worst of people will do that to you. You just, because it becomes common, completely commonplace. That's how I got after 10 years of crime reporting and then 5 years of employment counseling social work. You get tired of, and you try to help people and people don't want the help or nothing seems to change and you just kind of go, what's the fucking point?
Yeah. And I also think, so let's look at this from a different kind of perspective too, because it's not always bad. Like I hate to think that people get jaded, right? But we lose our drive and our passion the more we feed it. Think about this. We have a hunger for it in the early days because we don't know. We haven't been there yet. We haven't seen it.
We're excited for it.
Yeah. So sometimes I wonder if it's a desensitization to it, just due to, like so much of it, right? So once you start to satisfy that need and see all the sides of it, it's no longer a mystery. We often chase mysteries and problem solving and reward. Once you get through that long enough, are you jaded or are you just lacking the hunger that you had before your appetite was fed and you actually had something to do with it? I think it's a combination of both for sure. And then we evolve through that process. So the eyes, like that scene, the eyes we look at it from the beginning are very different than the eyes at the tail end of it, right? So we often might not even see the things naively that we did before, and we can actually be like, it's like when you find out a magician's magic tricks. You're like, oh, fuck.
That's it?
It's almost like that's at the end of it. Like, oh, okay. But without that hunger and that naiveness in the beginning and that eagerness, what would those 20 years have been, or what would those 10 years have been? They wouldn't have been. So I also think we're kind of blind to all of this in the beginning for good reason, because we're meant to walk through all of that.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
But I think in certain places, especially if you're dealing with like dark stuff, I think it can do something to your worldview, especially if you don't see, if it feels like all the hard work you're doing isn't changing anything, especially because you go with that naive, I'm going to go in and be a champion and make the world a better place and change things. And then you kind of get through your period of time and you're like, did anything change? And you did. Like, you've impacted people, but you've never seen the effect of that as a whole. And I think that can really alter your worldview, and you can get apathetic then. It's like, well, what the fuck does it matter?
And that was a big part in my government job, working with a chronically ill population that had less success rates of being symptom free. Okay, I don't want to say they don't improve, but they often have lifelong symptoms. And now, you know, so I could have been jaded and been like, I don't want to do this work anymore, right? But now I work with different populations and I see different results too, right?
Probably more frequently too.
Yeah. So even in your reporter world, if you were done with crime reporting, wouldn't it be awesome to be the dude that gets to go interview people that win the lottery?
I did do that.
Did you?
I did, and it was just, and even then, it's just like, fuck, this blows. Like, you know, like I don't. Or I went into the art. Like, I love art, like entertainment, so I was the entertainment reporter for a few months, and that was worse than the cop beat, because those fuckers are just like pretentious dicks about things, and it was just like what the fuck, guys? Like,
so now instead, Jason reads I used to read the obituaries all the time in the papers. First page I'd flip to. My kids would say, why are you always looking for the dead people? I'm like, because I know them. Often I know them.
I know who these people are.
So now that's what you do. That's what you flip to, and you go find the address, and right?
Ha! Now I'm coming to your house, bitch.
I need some content.
But it's just weird. Like, it was so bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, and I think, I think as a society too, I think we're starting to get to a place where it feels like apathy is more common. Like, I think people's priorities seem to be changing in a sense. Does that make sense?
It does, but like, it's again one of those things we referenced in our previous episode, right? Where it's like, how much of this apathy is our increased tolerance for things, and we can't give a shit about the small stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't sweat about the small stuff. You can't. So does it look like you're not caring, or are you picking your battles, right? So it's a little bit of all these things, right? And how much of this is also recognizing that, like, a lot of shit in this world is not our business. So don't make it your business. Don't care, right? Yeah. And where that comes up a lot for some people is like, you know, once we start doing our self-work, we can't truly really bank on what everybody else thinks of us. But it's still important to know what other people think of us, because we are also conducting ourselves in a certain way to be successful in certain realms, right? Yep. Like, not everybody can go out there with like a I don't give a fuck attitude, right? Unless you are a billionaire and you truly can go on both sides of those things, right? But like for you, Jason, if you think about, you know, a statement of like, yeah, I don't even care what that person says. I don't care what they think about me. Like, do you really think that person doesn't care?
They care more than anybody else.
Exactly. So I get that in my office a ton. And I look at them and I'm like, bullshit. Like, that's what I'll say to my clients. I'm like, bullshit. When you say it like that, I know that is one of your deepest rejection wounds right now. And you're telling yourself you don't care, and it's easier to be mad at somebody else because we have more momentum to put space and distance between things. And when we can slam a door somewhere, it's easier to move past that. But where it's harder but more beneficial is when we truly get to a place of being like, how can I exist peacefully knowing that this person might hold me in ill light or misunderstood my actions or be mad at me or have mistreated me and I'll never get the apology. That is where the fucking gold healing comes in. That's the good I don't care.
Yeah. Yes. And that is a place I think that more people, I know I'm trying very hard to get to that place.
Totally.
I think more people should put that effort in, but they're not. They're putting the big way it's manifested right now is in politics. I actually really listened to it. There's this other podcast, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yeah.
Where he brought a guy on about what's going on in society. It was like this council. I can't remember his name. It was brilliant, but he said there is such a disconnect among people right now. There's a whole generation that feels disconnected. So what they've done to fill that void is they politicized themselves as a way to build connection. But it's a false connection because they're standing up for these issues.
Fake news.
Fake news, yeah. But they're standing up for these issues, but they're not doing anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
They just kind of go, oh, this is a tragedy and we shouldn't allow this to happen. But they say that on social media, but that's the extent of their political involvement. But then they start fighting over it, which creates a greater disconnect, right? Well, you don't like pronouns, so fuck you, I'm never talking to you again. Like that's literally where they have these things. Or you're on the left and I'm on the right, so we're not going to deal with each other. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's this inability to disagree and be okay with it.
Or just to have diversity, for fuck's sake.
That's the whole point. It doesn't make life interesting is when not everybody thinks and feels the same way.
Yeah. And it's not even disagreeing. That's the thing. Just because I am wearing a yellow shirt
How dare you?
And you're wearing a white shirt doesn't mean we disagree.
No.
It simply means we're both showing up with a certain colored shirt. And none of that should fucking matter to the other person.
And there's no hidden meaning behind any of it or anything like that, right?
Yeah, like that's a perfect example. So yeah, and that kind of stuff comes up a lot. And I definitely work with people around hiding behind the idea of boundaries. So people will get all of the cliche kind of like trendy self-help stuff. I got boundaries. I got self-love. And I'm like, motherfucker, you need to boundary your own ass right now. Because sometimes that's what it is. And there's this aggressive boundary everywhere. And the word toxic's rolled around everywhere. And I'm like, hold up. That's not how this works, right? Boundaries are there to preserve relationships. Go back to our boundaries episode, folks. Season one. Those are there to preserve relationships. When we slam the fucking door and knock somebody out with them, we are not preserving a relationship. We are creating discord that then will create a response in someone else that we can then blame them for doing something, which then justifies why we've pushed them away. Yes, I just called you out.
Well done, Jolene.
You
well
know,
done.
all of y'all know you've done this. We've all fucking done this.
Yep.
It is one of our primal protective mechanisms because we want to make it someone else's fault. We just naturally do, okay? Because listen, so much shit happened to us in childhood that was our fault. We just want something to be someone else's fault.
We're tired of dealing with our shit.
Yes, so we get where that comes from. But find yourself out on that. Call yourself out on that. Like, those are the best sessions I have with people. And people respect that from me, is that I will shoot that shit right in the foot. Because they are not paying me to fucking follow their lies with them. Mm-hmm. Like, you are in a safe place. Like, I judge none of this. It all makes complete sense that we would do these things based on the things that have happened to us.
Yeah.
But they don't fuck us up.
There is a reason why we behave the way we do.
Yeah. Go back to the sabotage episode. Okay?
That was season two. Yeah, right.
And if you go on our website, integreatness.com, Kevin has done an amazing job of separating season 1 and separating season 2, so they're easy to find episodes, folks.
Yes, they are, actually. That's well done, Kevin, because that was so brilliant. He did 1 and 2. Wow.
Clap track.
Instead of just like all meshed together, because I can't keep track of them.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, it's very lovely to go look at. Check it out if you haven't yet. So, when we're looking at apathy and not caring, there are times, so maybe list off some things, Jay, that you feel fairly apathetic about now that you might not have before.
Oh, politics.
Oh, yeah.
Really. Most social issues. What people post on social media. Foodies. I don't understand that. Like, why are you putting pictures of food up on... Like, most things on YouTube. Like I'm finding I'm very apathetic to most of the world around me. More because part of it's because I look at what's going on and what people are getting passionate and excited about. And if you're a student of history, which I am, none of these things are new.
Oh, yeah.
Cancel culture is the same as the politically correct culture back in the 80s. Like it's all, you're just redressing these same issues. And so for me, it's just like, fuck, like the new generations kind of catch on and then you get passionate about it. But nothing much ever really seems to change. It's just they get excited about different things. So what most people are getting really engaged in, I'm just kind of like, it's been there, done that. And I'm not interested.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so people would say that I'm apathetic. Like, they're like, you don't watch the news anymore, Jay. And I'm like, no, because I worked in news for so long. Most of it's just negative shit anyways. And I just don't want that in my life.
And we shrink our world. So the more in control you feel, the less need you have for external information to keep your world in control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if I want to know something, I'll buy a book on it and study that instead of watching just the news and getting bombarded with shit every 30 seconds.
Yeah. So even, we've talked about that internal, external stuff. So that's actually a great example of the more, because I don't watch the news either. Like I don't have time. So there also comes a point where it's like, if there's only so much room on my plate for something and I'm at the buffet, I'm just picking the really good stuff.
Yeah.
Or maybe now it's not just all the treats. Fuck.
Right? Treats
it's
are
like
so good.
The nourishing stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe better protein and things like that, right? So looking at some of those things and recognizing like this is intentional apathy in terms of it's a redirection of maybe because you realized it took too much energy, created too much stress, whatever these things be, right?
Well, and I can't control them either, right? So if I have no impact on it, like what's going on in Europe with Ukraine, which everyone got worked up about there, aren't you worried? I'm like, no, I can't do anything about it. So it's not a concern of mine until the bomb starts dropping on my head. Then it's like, all right, I'm going to find a shelter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that doesn't mean you don't care about those other people. And that's what I talk about too. Like I literally have to worry about my 3 little people and keeping a roof over our heads. And this work you and I do here and the work that I do in my office is my contribution to the collective and raising my kids well. I cannot control what's happening overseas. I cannot control what's happening even in the city of Kamloops. No. But I can control the people that I have direct influence with and impact with, and I can change how they walk through the world so that they can then make bigger change.
That's it. That is all that I really give two shits about.
Because I don't like feeling out of control by watching these things I have nothing to do with.
And you can't do anything about it anyways.
And I don't want to be afraid about those things.
And what's the point in talking about it if you can't do it? Like, people want to talk about it at work when you go to work. And they're, can you believe this? Like, over to my buddy Sean, he's like, I can't believe this is going on. It's like, he's like, and I'm like, I don't, really? That's going on? I can't.
Yeah.
What's the point even discussing it? We can't do anything
you know
about
what I'm talking about? I'm talking about water restrictions right now.
Yeah.
That concerns me.
Right?
Right?
But that's like literally where it goes, or what I'm going to, get Griffin on Friday when we go for dinner or something. Like
the other place is that, that I look at apathy. So this was a really interesting one in my separation and going from a place of, even when we're in places of anger and annoyance, a lot of people think like anger is the opposite of love. It's still so emotionally charged. Mm-hmm. When you get to a place of neutrality and apathy, that is the sort of opposite place of being engaged with somebody else, right? So that is where you really just like drop the tug of war. Like you drop the rope entirely, right? So you're not pulling, you're not pushing, you just drop it. It's standing at your feet. So those are places where a lot of times people will reach places of apathy in relationships at work or with ex-partners or even their children, maybe if they've had, especially like children with addiction issues and things like that, right? It looks like they don't care, but they've actually healed the tug of war wound that's there. And there is a place of apathy and lack of charge. And that's really helpful when people have manipulative patterns in relationships that look like, I'm quoting finger quotes here, narcissism and things like that, right? We want to do like the gray rock and have that stoic kind of response, but essentially have that resonate inside the same way it does on the outside, right? Yeah. And just not be activated by the same kinds of things. That's a beautiful place of apathy to get to.
It is. And there's people who, once you've got that, but they don't know how to, like the person quite often that you've engaged with and had this fight with.
Yeah.
They don't even know how to handle it anymore.
Yeah.
They like, there's like, wait, this
It's
isn't
very
how our
sad
relationship's
for them.
supposed to work.
Actually, it's very sad, especially when they thrive in a place of conflict, and they would prefer you to get mad at them than to have no reaction, because it means there's something still there. That's what they were used to as, I exist, I'm seen. If someone's yelling at me, at least it means I'm seen. And, you know, people think apathy means you don't care. No, it does mean that you're like emotionally distant or whatever and you don't care. But that does not mean you can't still care about people. Mm-hmm. So I reached a point of apathy in my separation, which felt that is where I cultivated peace, to be honest. It was peace I was going after, not apathy.
Yeah.
But it actually got me to a place most of the time where I can drop that rope entirely. And I am way more understanding and compassionate and kind than I was when I was holding that rope.
For sure. For sure.
So that's the other piece, because sometimes people are worried about that. Like, does that now counter the type of person I am? Because for me, my value of being able to be a loving, kind, caring, compassionate person, I couldn't act that out in that scenario anymore while we were married, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, that was a constant cognitive dissonance against my own moral system. So I actually had to get to a place of apathy in order to be able to align with being who I truly am and being able to offer those things. Isn't that wild?
It's wild, but that's how you want to get in those situations,
For sure.
right?
Yeah. And I mean, yes, there's forgiveness in there and different things like that, and often just kind of forgiveness for the situation, right? Mm-hmm. Or holding the rope too long or whatever that looks like, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's very interesting to be able to observe different dynamics like that. In friendships, it happens a lot with people. Friendships are often sort of like our closest relationships. Sometimes we actually have those more intimately intertwined than romantic relationships.
Quite a bit, yeah.
I see that a lot with females, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a codependent bestie kind of scenario.
Which is, that's interesting. It is more, because guys have that too, but not to the same degree, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it shows up a little differently with guys, right? Yeah. And it might be, you guys give each other a ticket out at times.
Ticket out, and then even if there's a period where, say you have an argument and you don't talk for a while.
Yeah.
But if there's something that you go, bro, I got this problem, you can help. You just, yep, I'm over.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I do find in those tight partnerships, they're the ones, now, maybe not at your age now, but like think about your 20s, 30s kind of thing, where if you know your buddy's struggling, it's like, I'll be there. I'll ask him to go for a beer, but I'm not having that conversation.
Yeah. Oh, now we will have the conversation
Now
at the
you
age
will.
we are at. Yeah.
Yeah.
But back then, no. It's just like, hey, do you want to go do something?
Yeah. But really, there's like this whole elephant you guys are all sitting on.
And
yeah.
then we would leave it open for that person if they are comfortable to talk about it.
Yeah.
They'd bring it up. And then you're willing to chat.
Yeah.
But now at our age, we don't have time for that bullshit. It's like, what's going on?
Dude,
what's up? Oh, it's this. Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So apathy, so those are some other places that apathy can come into play too. And then again, apathy in terms of, is this like an avoidance strategy in a relationship dynamic? When we look at attachment theory, so we've talked about that, season 1, attachment styles, I think around Valentine's Day.
I think so, yeah.
And looking, like around love languages and stuff, I think we talked about it. So looking at that, you know, you've got secure attachment, insecure attachments, disorganized attachments, you've got avoidance, okay? And I actually think that avoidant strategies and avoidant attachment styles and ways of interacting in relationships that get close can be perceived as apathy, and that's so activating for the other partner.
Yes, it can be,
right?
yeah.
It just looks like he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care enough. And I mean, I know I've been there, right? So then if the other person has a wound of I'm not good enough, every time that apathy and avoidance falls into play, the other partner is automatically triggered with the I'm not good enough to be thought of, I'm not significant, I'm not important, I'm not, like, I don't exist here.
Yeah. Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
And that's just like a punching match back and forth.
Yeah, with two people that really, if they could communicate better, would make a huge difference. Because it'd be so understanding. It's like, well, the reason why is because of blah, blah, blah. Oh, well, this is what, how this makes me feel.
That is one of the most common dynamics that I work with couples on.
Yeah.
It's so common.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, apathy, look at the areas of your life. Often people will do this too. They'll give themselves the gift of apathy in a place of their life they feel like they've slid.
Yes.
You know? Yeah, it's okay. I don't really care anymore. doesn't really matter to me anymore. Again, that fear of failure, or even shame associated with lack of success or follow through.
Even sometimes fear of success will
Yeah,
cause an
you've talked
apathy.
about
Yeah.
that.
Like, oh my God, if I'm successful at this, then I got to commit and I've got to do this. Like, oh, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Right? If it works or not. But you do care, but you're telling yourself it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we'll use that as a bit of a protective mechanism, right?
Yep.
Like, oh, it didn't matter. I didn't care, right? Especially if other people are rejecting us in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think of children, right? Childhood friendships and stuff. Oh, it doesn't matter. I don't care, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you're like,
Many a time have I said that as a kid. I've even seen Griffin do it at his age, right?
Yeah, totally. So looking at some of those places, where do I gift myself with apathy as like a little bit of a cozy blanket? Because it hurts. And if I don't care, then it doesn't look at the hurt.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Apathy. Now we're bummed.
And the funny thing is I can't feel apathetic about the word apathy in the state of being. Like, it's a very neutral place to be, and I am not a neutral person.
No, it's a tough one. It is a tough one, and that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I think it's something. I think it's very common.
Yeah.
We all deal with it. There's like we talked about, good apathy, bad apathy.
Helpful and non-helpful.
Yeah. Helpful and non-helpful.
And then there's honey badger apathy.
Who just don't give a fuck. So if you have any thoughts on apathy, leave us a comment. Send us an email. Go to the integreatness.com site and drop us a line. You can do that now.
Yes. And then something totally unrelated, but maybe related, I'm going to throw it in there, is like, so many people send me this because it's so good and it's so my humor, but Saturday Night Live had a skit on where they had Beavis and Butthead with Ryan Gosling.
Oh!
Fuck, Jay, have you seen it?
I haven't. Is it
okay,
good? Yeah.
Everybody Google it. Okay, we're going to watch it when we stop recording. It's so fucking funny, and Kenan Thompson is hilarious, and then I forget the gal's name who is like the interviewer, but you know, all the time, especially even actors on SNL, my favorite part is when they move out of character and they just burst out laughing, right? Like, that kills me. And it's those moments where, like, when I think about this apathy, it's like, what busts us out of that, right?
Yes.
What busts us out of this really controlled, neutral state, right? Into the realness of what's actually happening in the moment. So that is just something I want you guys to go and enjoy a laugh. If you haven't seen that skit, definitely go check it out and laugh your ass off. So
we will do that.
All right. But we do not want you to feel apathetic about this next favorite episode that you have just dropped in your ears. So we want lots of likes.
And
we
shares.
Want lots of shares. And we want you guys to go out and have a kick-ass week.
Exactly. And we'll be back next week with your next favorite episode of the Integrateness Podcast. Jolene just cracked her ankle on a chair. How do you feel about that, Jolene?
Oh, fuck.
She is not apathetic about what she just did. Have a good week, folks.
Bye, guys.